Now it's time for the O'Hara News and Editorial. This is the show that brings you the news through the lens of men's rights activism with a hard-hitting red pill perspective. My co-host, James Huff, and I will bring you current events and important guests who will share their insights as well. We also invite the most important people to share their thoughts and experiences here on The One as well. You. This show invites callers to discuss the events of the day with hosts and our guests. We want your involvement. So listen, call in, and experience the one show that gives it to you straight, in a way no other media outlet will. Tonight we have as our guest Jonathan Taylor from A Voice for Male Students to talk about, among other things, the recent upswing in media attention to the so-called rape culture on U.S. college and university campuses. Flyers containing the names of accused rapists are showing up at Columbia University, with many news outlets covering the issue. An uptick in the news coverage of sexual assault cases on colleges and universities is appreciated clear across the board. Time magazine will have as its cover story on May 25th, Rape, the Crisis in Higher Education. What's going on here? Could this be pushed back to more and more people speaking out about the Dear Colleague letter, the Blueprint letter, and false rape accusations in general? Do not miss this opportunity to call in and discuss this hot-button issue with Jonathan Taylor, Robert O'Hara, and James Huff tonight on The One. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the O'Hara News and Editorial. James, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, man. Got two new shows playing on Mondays now. We've got The Vanguard Report starring Fiedelbogen and Eric Duckman from Men's Rights Edmonton. They are running from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. And then our second news show on Monday runs from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. and that is Blue Collar Red Pill with Dan Perrins and Jack Barnes, a.k.a. Night Runner.
Sweet.
And I'll tell you that the shows went off without a hitch yesterday, and we managed to get transitioned between shows very easily. So this just goes to show that I will be able to run 8 hours of showtime a day with easy transitions in between each one.
Sweet.
Oh yeah.
It's really cool to see like AVFM radio expanding, and James, really, I gotta hand it to you. You really are doing a great job, and this is great that we got two new shows on this thing. Well, and you could not have picked better show hosts than Jack Barnes and Danny Boy and Fiedelbogen and Eric Duckman. Those guys definitely born to do this stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, I didn't listen yesterday because I was working.
I like what they're doing. On the plus side, I'm also going to start tying the archives of everything we've done since we've come to Live 365. All the shows that everybody has missed, I'm going to be tying the archives into the AVFM radio affiliate site starting tomorrow morning. And hopefully within the next couple of days, now that we've got our storage server all taken care of, hopefully within the next couple of days, man, we'll be rocking to provide you guys with everything you've missed for quite some time now.
Great. Well, archives are important because, you can always, people ask about our shows, and we have, some shows are better than others, but it's always the archives that really get more people interested in. It's always the archives that are the best marketing tool for online radio shows, I think. I'm sure you would agree too.
Absolutely.
So it's really good to hear that we're going to have those available for our listeners. I know I have a lot of people asking me about that, and that's great that we got that working out, James.
I've had people ready to stomp a mud puddle in my butt
Well, I've never done that, have I?
No,
I'm sure other people.
I'm just talking about our listeners. I have contact with some of our listeners, and some of those guys, they're ready to reach through Skype and just strangle me because they can't.
Give me an archive.
That's right.
Well, they want to share like when they called in with their friends and stuff like that. So it's all good.
Hey, I don't blame them for being upset. If I couldn't listen to my favorite shows, I'd kind of be upset too. But we're gonna change that. We're changing that. We're getting the everything up and running now, and it's gonna be great. Yeah. So what's in the news today?
Oh, well, this is going to be the theme of the show. I have seen a real uptick in the news media concerning sexual assault on campus. It just came out of the blue, and it's like from the lower tiers and Jezebel all the way up to Time magazine. People in the mainstream media are just in the past couple of weeks, really, have been very, very hyper-productive when it comes to writing stories about sexual assault on college and university campuses. I don't think this is a coincidence. I think this is a response to activism, more and more effective activism, that is targeting the Dear Colleague letter and the Blueprint letter, and basically the activities of the Department of Justice and the DOE, Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights. I really think it is. And as usual, InsideHigherEd.com published a story they really are kind of on the ball with this stuff. They're covering it very, very, very closely. And this story came out today, entitled Senate Warning on Sexual Assault, coming from Washington. Senator Claire McCaskill, one of several lawmakers leading a new effort to combat sexual assault on college campuses, said Monday that she's eyeing stiffer penalties for institutions that violate federal rules on reporting and handling sexual assault cases. Kicking off the first of 3 Capitol Hill roundtable discussions on the issue, McCaskill previewed some of the issues she plans to tackle in legislation she is drafting with Senators Kristen Gillibrand of New York and Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. The bill, she said, would aim to simplify the, quote, complex labyrinth, unquote, of rules that govern campus sexual assaults. The Clery Act, the federal anti-discrimination law known as the Title IX, and a patchwork of state laws that define consent. But McCaskill also indicated that lawmakers are seeking to take a harder line against colleges that violate these rules. The lawmakers, she said, are considering a revised penalty structure for the Clery Act and Title IX. She said that the complete removal of federal funds, the most severe sanction federal officials can currently impose on institutions, is unrealistic for the government to impose without unfairly harming large numbers of innocent students. But at the other extreme, the maximum $35,000 fine that can be levied under the Clery Act is essentially a slap on the wrist for many institutions. Quote, "We are looking at a variety of things, including larger fines," she said. "I feel very strongly that fines would need to be based on the size of the institution." She said she was still considering whether an institution size should be measured by its budget, its enrollment, or the degree to which it receives federal aid. Now, this article goes on. Remember, Inside Higher Ed is basically written by and for a bunch of administrators. And they're all really concerned about this whole business because, first of all, they don't want to get into law enforcement. Second of all, the rules are clearly very ambiguous and very discriminatory. And third, they realize that they can get sued for a lot of money for mishandling these things. I really think that people in higher education, especially administrators, and I think especially Title IX administrators, are really, really uncomfortable with the way things are right now with the Department of Justice and the Department of Education giving them mandates that they really feel, I think, in their heart of hearts, they shouldn't have to burden themselves with. And I think what's happening on a governmental level and also in a media level, which we'll talk about later on in this program. I think this is pushback to what's happening in our courts with more and more lawsuits being leveled at institutions by men who've been accused of sexual assault. And also, I think of more and more vocality when it comes to people speaking out about false rape accusations and the Dear Colleague letter and the blueprint letter and this whole idea of rape culture on campus, which is clearly being used to drum up hysteria and write unjust laws and put money in the hands of people that just want to suck off the teat. That's my analysis of it. We're going to be talking about it a lot tonight. But James, tell us what you think about this.
Well, I'm really surprised that we're seeing the kind of pushback that we're seeing. I mean,
I'm not surprised at all. This is but we've never seen this the amplitude of pushback that we're seeing now.
Right. So, I mean, it's one thing when it's on all of the social justice blogs.
Right.
Something else entirely when we start seeing stuff come out of Washington. And I can only imagine what these administrators are doing at this point in time to try to look at their own books and find out what's going on. When we look at the Clary Act, I mean, is she essentially saying that the stuff that we find in the with all the reporting done on the Clary Act for each of these universities is not up to par? Is that what she's saying?
Well, what she's saying is that here's the deal. She's talking out two sides of her mouth, like most politicians do. She is on the bandwagon with this whole war against women, let's amp up the whole rape hysteria on campus so we can get more political power, this and that. We've seen this many, many, many times before. But at the same time, she and people like her, I'm sure, are leery of this idea that, wait a minute, we could really, really screw over a lot of innocent people if we impose these huge fines. And I think by extension, she's implying that there might be a problem with this whole thing of the reduction of the burden of proof and the lack of due process, but she won't say that because she doesn't care about it. But she understands that problem is there, and because people are starting to sue over this stuff.
I really don't see why they need to make it so complex. It's
not complex at all. I mean, the thing is,
I mean, if it's reported, then it goes to the local police.
Right. And if they decide not to prosecute, then that's it. That should be the end of story.
How freaking hard is that?
It's not. Well, they of course they have this narrative that says, oh, well, the police, they just have a long history of being really, really, dismissive and abusive about this. I'm like, really? I've never known any police officer that's ever said, oh, if a girl's raped, she deserves it, or we don't take rape.
Well, here's the
seriously.
Thing.
It's
hold on. And here's what I have to say about that. At that point, you don't tackle it through the colleges. You tackle it through the police.
Yeah, well, it's a criminal thing, and that's really like one of the base arguments against this whole business of the Dear Colleague letter and what it
boils down to is she wants to have her cake and eat it too.
Basically, yes.
And
they're maneuvering around this whole problem of like, oh, we could face litigation because of this, so we need to engineer it not to keep real victims safer, but to make it to where we can continue to make inroads on getting more political power on campuses and more money flowing into organizations,
and to make it more airtight.
Yes,
effect. So that way, that makes it harder for them to. It would be interesting if they started coming out with regulatory bodies on campus who write rules into admissions, essentially excusing the college if you are dismissed for sexual assault according to their star chambers.
Right.
So if you actually go to the college, they say, well, you know, you may have paid us several $1,000s for your tuition, but we're going to go ahead and kick you off. And by the way, since you signed the admission, on the admissions contract, it stated you can't sue us.
Yeah, you can't sue us, right? There's this disclaimer.
So right.
Every time any male student enrolls in the college, he's signing a disclaimer saying that you're not going to have any due process rights if you're accused of this particular thing, sexual assault or sexual harassment.
Right.
And there's going to be a much lower standard of evidence, and you're going to like it, and you can't sue us if you think you've been discriminated against because we have this disclaimer.
Right. I'd see it going in that direction.
Yeah.
Which,
Totally. Oh, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's the next step. The very next step. That's not far off. That's not like some crazy.
And folks, this is where I suggest you go out and really support self-learning and online facilities. Do you hear me?
Just don't go to college. Just become a plumber.
Don't go to a physical campus.
I swear to God,
you can't stick your dick in someone if you're not there.
Well, no, I mean, I really, and I'm serious. I mean, I got a degree in economics from the University of Maryland, and I swear to God, I really wish I had become an electrician or a plumber. I would have been much better off financially. I mean, I totally would have been so much better off. But that's another show, I guess. I don't know.
We'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah, well.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on with one of my stories. Since we're already halfway through our news here, I'm going to try to make it relatively quick. Dmitry Rybolovlev, Russian oligarch, ordered to pay ex-wife, you ready for this? $4.5 billion. That's right. A Swiss court has ordered a Russian billionaire to pay more than $4.5 billion to his ex-wife in what could become the biggest divorce settlement in history. In papers delivered Monday to both parties, the Geneva Tribunal of First Instance said Dmitry, an owner of the French soccer club AS Monaco, must pay $4,509,375,184.80 to ex-wife Elena of Geneva. Both are aged 47. The judgment also granted his ex-wife property worth $146 million in Gstaad, Switzerland, where the couple owned 2 swanky chalets. It awarded his ex-wife 2 other pieces of real estate in the ultra-wealthy area of Geneva, known as Cologne, where the couple once lived together but listed no value for either address, and it confirmed her custody of their 13-year-old daughter, Anna. Her lawyer, Mark Bonnet, called it the most expensive divorce in history, an unheard-of amount for Switzerland and for Russian oligarchs. Now, of course, they're taking this to appeals. Okay, so more than likely the judgment's cash order will probably be a little less. There's going to be a new appellate review, and therefore the judgment is not final given the existence of 2 levels of appeal in Switzerland, and a separate statement made by Bonnet and 2 other lawyers in the case called the record judgment a complete victory for her, and said that under Swiss law she was entitled to half the fortune he made. Let me say that again. She was entitled to half the fortune he made during their marriage. Most of that fortune was transferred to Cyprus-based trusts in 2005. And he made his fortune. He's worth about $12.8 billion currently. So a lot of people are going to look at that and go, well, he's already obscenely wealthy. $4.8 billion isn't going to hurt him if he's got another $8 billion. It's the principle of the thing, folks. It really is. $4.8 billion settlement.
Seriously. And we thought that this was only a Western
I mean,
phenomenon.
she's getting the 4.8, and then on top of that, she gets this swanky property worth a measly 106 million. I mean, she could real easily buy another one of those 10 times over if she wanted.
Yeah, sure.
and still have, a couple $1 billion left to play with. And then on top of that, full custody of the daughter. Wow. Well,
it's another. I mean, this is like I just said. It's like this is not something that is isolated to the Western court system or Western women, as a lot of people like to say. This is simply something that is spreading all over the planet. We've been seeing this type of thing
this way. I never understood the argument by all these guys going, "I'm going expat and I'm going to."
Yeah, you're going to get.
Answer to that is
it's going to be you're going to get wasted way quicker.
You're changing up nature for nature here. What the hell are you doing, man?
There's nothing
male
to do
male
with...
disposability is the same no matter what country you live in.
Yeah. Well, it's like this model of family and divorce court has been exported decades ago. It's already out there. It's already out there, and these guys, they just don't understand. Oh, if I find a nice Asian girl, a nice South American girl, a nice Russian girl, I'm going to be those girls are going to eat you for lunch, baby.
Anybody
tear you up.
Look, Eddie Murphy said it. Eddie Murphy friggin' said it in the mid-'80s. He said it loud and clear. If any of you ever watched his stand-up called Raw, he got up on stage, he talked about getting this witch woman from some African tribe and bringing her over, and then, everything would be great, and then, eventually, some other women would come in and talk to her, and then he'd come home one day and she'd be like, I want half, Eddie. This was back in the mid-'80s, guys. This is not anything new for all you millennials out there who think, oh, wow, this world's really going to pot. No, it's not going to pot.
It's been there for quite some time. It's been there for quite some time.
So, don't do it. Don't get married.
Don't get married.
Do not cohabitate. Do not set any kind of financial precedent when it comes to supporting another human being. Okay? Except a child. All right?
Your child. Your child.
Right, yeah, your child.
No one, not somebody else's child.
Somebody else's child. Your child. Do not set that precedent, okay? Everybody wants to keep screaming about all the marriage laws and everything like that being unequal and all that, and to tell you the truth, I'm tired of hearing that argument as well. I think gay people should have just as much right to have state interference in their marriages and have just as messy divorces.
Oh yeah.
Sexual people.
Absolutely. I tell all my gay friends, I say, you guys are crazy. You don't understand what's going to happen. In about 5 years, you're going to realize this huge mistake that you made about getting married and thinking, oh, we're going to live together for the rest of our lives.
Oh, yeah,
I get to see you in the hospital when you're dying. He gets to say for me. Yeah, he also gets to take your Beamer and, the dog.
Yeah.
And all the cookware and the grill and half your money. Oh no! What was I thinking?
Ooh, no, God!
It's gonna happen.
Yep, and you can only imagine what'll happen with the adopted kid.
Even the non-adopted kid, the kid that was born of the surrogate mother or
true.
We already see what's happening in nightmare. So much more of a nightmare for guys, I think, than it's going to be. Well. It's just a nightmare.
It's a nightmare no matter
what you do.
No matter what. All right, man. Why don't you move on with your next story?
Okay, I just wanted to share. Now, like I said, there's been a huge uptick in the media concerning sexual assault on campuses, and I just want to bring to attention two things going on. Jezebel is covering what's happening at Columbia University, where so-called rapists that are found, quote, responsible. Now, interesting choice of words, not guilty, but, quote, responsible by the university during these, proceedings where basically a girl points her finger at somebody and he's guilty of rape. They're covering this thing that's happening at Columbia University where these groups are distributing flyers on campus with the names of these accused rapists who are still attending the university because they weren't found guilty of anything. But their names are getting thrown out there anyway. And this is really crazy. This is just absolutely insane. The University of Maryland did this about 20 years ago. It was screwed up then. It's screwed up now. It's messed up. But they're doing it. And this Isabel article reads, earlier today reported that a, quote, rapist list penned by unknown authors was appearing in women's bathroom stall walls on Columbia University campuses. University custodians were erasing the list almost as quickly as they appeared. But now, whoever is responsible has doubled the fuck down. Instead of scribbling names on walls, they're handing out flyers. The flyers list the names of 4 men that the authors say were found responsible for sexual assault, yet allowed to remain on campus. For the sake of their privacy, we've blurred out the names, but the list includes a musician, a prominent writer for a campus publication. Ooh, boy, I'd like to have lunch with that guy. And a varsity athlete. Of course, always an athlete. The three whose enrollment at Columbia were able to verify appear to be current students, according to their public social media accounts. And this also accompanies a story in Time magazine entitled Campus Sexual Assault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Entitled, this is basically coming from somebody at Columbia University that's saying that the article just disappeared from my screen. I don't know where it went off to, but somebody in Time magazine reported that they're at Columbia University and the rape is still going to school there. They're not been kicked out. We don't know who this person is. Of course, we can't cross-examine them or what they have to say. This guy's presumed guilty. And Time magazine is going to have as the cover story for their upcoming May 25th publication, Rape: The Problem with Sexual Assault on College Campuses. There is a clear and huge, massive uptick in the amount of coverage that the issue of sexual assault on campuses is getting from the mainstream media. And I don't think this is a coincidence. I think that this is a pushback to activism that groups like The Fire, SAVE, and A Voice for Men have been performing. And I think that these people are using the media, and the media is a willing participant in engaging in this pushback to make sure that more reasonable voices are not heard, because there's too much money at stake, there's too much political power at stake. We got the whole war on women thing coming up here in the next election, and of course, people got to keep on spending that VAWA money, or else it's going to dry up. So I think that's what's going on here. And after we get back from the music break, we're going to be talking about this with Jonathan Taylor. He is the owner of A Voice for Male Students, I think the premier website concerning the rights of male students and the condition that males face in higher education today. Please call in. The phone number, James, can I say the phone number now before the music break?
No, I'd wait until after we talk
great.
to Jonathan for a little while. I do have one more story to run through.
Okay, sure. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Now, this is coming out of Toy Soldier. It's an interesting case. I'm going to go ahead and read it off here. It seems a Florida jury convicted Denise Harvey of 5 counts of unlawful sexual activity with a minor in 2008. Now, the victim was a boy on her son's baseball team. Harvey assaulted the 16-year-old boy several times at his father's home and her office, and she faces a 30-year sentence. She will likely not serve because she applied for and was granted refugee status in Canada. That's right. She faces 30 years in prison, and to avoid the
refugee status in Canada.
That's correct. And
for being the target of a prosecution.
Well,
she's not a refugee.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Sorry.
To avoid the prison sentence, she filed for refugee status in Canada, and Canada granted her request. A convicted sex offender fleeing her sentence was granted refugee status. And here's the explanation for it, okay? The Immigration and Refugee Board initially granted asylum to Ms. Harvey. In federal court documents, the board notes there was no evidence that the sex was not consensual. The physical relationship was only illegal because of age difference, the documents state. So the IRB, the Immigration and Refugee Board, decided she was facing cruel and unusual punishment by Canada's standards, which was also in disregard, it said, of accepted international standards. Just to throw my own 2 cents here, that means anybody in the U.S. who grooms a child of any age, and that child, quote, agrees to have sex with the adult, well, guess what? The Immigration and Refugee Board has just opened themselves up to a flood of pedophiles crossing the border seeking asylum.
Oh, yeah.
So, Harvey is not a Canadian citizen. The crimes did not happen in Canada. They occurred in the United States, where, of course, Canadian law doesn't apply. And according to the guy who runs Toy Soldier here, she was written about in 2008 by him when she was convicted. Now the law states the act is illegal regardless of whether the minor consented. That's the same language used in Canadian law. In other words, if one had consensual sex with a 15-year-old in Canada, it would still be illegal despite the minor's consent. So Canada's Minister of Citizenship and Immigration then appealed to the Federal Court of Canada to overturn the decision. In a decision released in July of 2013, the appeal was granted, and Ms. Harvey lost her refugee status. The judge in the case ruled the IRB had not provided adequate reasoning explaining why Ms. Harvey's sentence contravened international standards. We do not know which of Ms. Harvey's arguments on the question of accepted international standards were or were not accepted and why that was, wrote Justice Anne McTavish. So this federal court decision cleared the way for a new IRB hearing. Now, the Florida Assistant State Attorney Nikki Robinson noted the absurdity of Canada granting refuge to a convicted sex offender because she is a convicted sex offender, saying, "It is incomprehensible to me that Canada would grant her any type of immigration relief under these circumstances," she said in an email to the National Post. Barry Golden, senior investigator with the U.S. Marshal's Office in Miami, Florida, said Ms. Harvey's case will remain open in the U.S. Quote, "If she does come back to the States, there will be an arrest warrant for her," he said. "This type of crime, any felony where you're sentenced to 30 years, that's a severe crime," he said. So she's sitting up in Canada right now, about ready to have a whole new Immigration and Refugee Board hearing, and more than likely it'll go round robin, and she'll get it again. Yeah. And with that, I'm just going to go straight to the music break and let you guys digest this.